Radical Islam terrorism in Canada and here in the United States, sparking fears of future so-called lone wolf attacks. And that has lawmakers calling for solutions. David Vitter is a member of the Senate Armed Services Committee. Senator, good to have you on the program.
Great to be with you, Maria.
Thank you so much for joining us. So what can or can't lawmakers do to stop this lone wolf scenario in the U.S.?
Well, obviously, Maria, it's a difficult problem. First, I think we need to recognize we are at war. This isn't just a law enforcement issue. We are at war, and we need to continue to go on the offense. Being on the defense will never defend all of the targets that are in our society. Secondly, I think our borders and homeland security are very, very serious concerns. Obviously, that alone won't protect us because some of these folks could be citizens, but I think our southern border is a much, much more serious problem, really a crisis now, in part because of this aspect to the situation.
Yeah, I think you make a great point, and that's what I want to really get into with you, because we can talk about protecting the borders, but what about the idea that there may very well be people here in America that are Americans that are choosing to go this route? So stay with us, Senator. A lot to talk about with you, Senator Vitter. First, though, let's get these recent headlines renewing concerns over homegrown and lone wolf terrorism here in North America. How do we stop the radicalization of people born and bred on our shores? Fox News senior correspondent Eric Shawn joins us with that angle. Good morning to you, Eric.
Good morning, Maria, and good morning, everyone. You know, 9/11 was a complicated attack that took years of planning. But now, a terrorist just has to pick up a hatchet or a gun. You know, terrorism here at home is not new. Back in 1954, Puerto Rican nationalist terrorists opened fire in the House chamber on Capitol Hill and wounded 5 congressmen. The next decade, the Puerto Rican separatist successor, the FALN, bombed and killed its way into infamy. Also in the 1960s, the Weather Underground, the Symbionese Liberation Army, they all engaged in a violent struggle against American values. Well, now the radical Islamic terrorists have picked up that fight and walk among us. J.L. Thompson, who was shot to death last week after attacking 4 New York City police officers with that hatchet, reportedly defended ISIS, and he called for a revolution against his own country. Reports say he wrote on Facebook, quote, "America's military is strong abroad, but they have never faced an internal mass revolt. Helicopters, big military will be useless on their own soil, and they will not be able to defeat our people if we use guerrilla warfare." Terrorists have been called lone wolves before, but that turned out to be wrong. In 1990, El Sayed Nosair assassinated extremist Rabbi Meir Kahane in a New York City hotel, and he was prosecuted as a lone gunman. But it was several years until authorities realized Nosair was actually a member of an Islamic terror cell headed by the blind sheikh, Omar Abdelrahman. Rahman's followers then went on to bomb the World Trade Center back in 1993. And now the calls for jihad and the threat are only stronger. Thompson, who had the hatchet, like the Sonara brothers in Boston, who allegedly bombed the marathon, may not be direct members of a terrorist group, but ISIS and al-Qaeda don't need them to be. You know, al-Qaeda's jihad magazine is named Inspire, and that is all that is necessary to spur the so-called lone wolves to their murderous actions. Maria?
All right, Eric, thanks very much. More now with Senator Vitter on this subject. And Senator, how worried are you about this, lone wolves in the U.S.?
Well, I think it's very real, and we need to be on guard about it. We need a full law enforcement and intelligence response. We need major organizations, and particularly in places like New York City, infiltrating terrorist cells and terrorist networks so we can get the best intelligence possible.
In terms of these attacks in Canada and then the hatchet in the U.S.,
right.
Did that spark new concerns, do you think, about this lone wolf scenario?
Well, not brand new, because, Maria, this phenomenon is not brand new.
Sure.
We've known about it. We've known about the threat. But clearly, it highlights the significant danger, and it does increase attention on it.
Where are we in terms of the fight against ISIS, Senator? You know, we've been talking for so long about the airstrike campaign. Is it working?
Yeah. I don't think it is. I think it's largely window dressing, unfortunately. I don't think we have a comprehensive approach a comprehensive strategy. And I think we need a new resolution in terms of military force for a couple of reasons. One, constitutionally, because we're talking about a whole nother country, in part Syria. Second, practically, to really engage Congress and the American people and have a full discussion and debate about this so we get to a comprehensive strategy that can work. I don't think we're there yet under President Obama's leadership.
Do you think that the strategy changes after the midterm elections, that we, in fact, do see boots on the ground after the midterms?
That's largely up to President Obama as long as he's in charge. I would doubt it. I don't think he's ever going to get to American boots on the ground leading the way. I hope where we get is a recognition that airstrikes, particularly very, very specific airstrikes, not a huge campaign, is not going to be close to doing the job. And we need to engage our allies much more fully and get some boots on the ground. I'm not advocating Americans leading the way or taking all of the sacrifice by any means.
Well, let's talk about the midterms for a moment. Sir, here we are in a majorly tight race. How do you see it playing out?
Great chance for Republicans to pick up the Senate. You know, it takes a net pickup of 6 seats for Republicans to get the Senate majority. There are 10 or 12 very, very competitive races. All but 2 are currently held by Democrats. So it's very, very possible. And, of course, one of those very competitive races is here in Louisiana. My Democratic colleague, Mary Landrieu, against a Republican Congressman, Bill Cassidy.
Yeah. Do you think it's all about turnout? What are you expecting in terms of turnout in Louisiana?
Well, I really think Senator Landrieu's only shot is to completely rev up the sort of Obama turnout machine. I think under any normal turnout scenario, any traditional metric, she's going to lose. Probably in a December runoff. It's going to go to a runoff in December. So I know they're very, very focused on turnout.
And if the GOP takes the Senate, what's the #1 priority in terms of policy changes that you'd like to see?
Repeal Obamacare. Now, that would be vetoed by President Obama, but I think it's very important to move forward with that, the House and Senate together, and then also look at specific reforms after that veto that can make a difference in the next 2 years before the next presidential election.
Senator, good to have you on the program this morning. We'll be watching.
Thank you, Maria.
We'll see you soon. Senator David Vitter joining us. Those midterm elections just over a week away. The CEO of one of the largest healthcare and consumer products companies is with us.